Okay, great. We'll go ahead and get started now. Um, Before we begin, a quick overview of our agenda today. First, we're going to give you a brief introduction to Vercel and V0. Then we're going to go ahead and show you what it's like to create a chatbot with V0. And then we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive. We're going to go under the hood into V0, Vercel, Next.js, and the AI SDK. And finally, we're going to do a quick Q&A so you can get your questions out. And there was an email that was sent before this webinar started asking you to create a Vercel account as well as a Vercel Google Chrome extension to install on your computer, and finally to prepare an open AI API key. No worries if you haven't done so. We'll give you a little bit of time in part of the webinar to sort of go through that. In addition, you can simply just follow along and just watch me create the chatbot live. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Here's a quick introduction about me. I am Derek. I am a sales engineer here at Vercel. I've been at the company for about 8 months, but rest assured, I've been using Vercel for much longer than that. I've been using Vercel since I think 2020. So I've been using Vercel for 4 years, and I absolutely love the product. In addition, with me are Sean, Andre, Perry, Christian, and Jared, and they are some kick-ass product specialists with Vercel. They know Vercel in and out, and they were very courteous to let me take the stage today and yap. But enough about me. I could talk about myself all day long. Let's go ahead and get started and talk about what we really are here for. And to begin, I want to start off with a little bit of a philosophical, sort of lofty phrase. And it's the idea that iteration velocity is a solution to all known software problems. So what does that mean exactly? What does iteration velocity have to do with me, the software developer? Well, at the core of this idea is that the faster you ship, the faster you get feedback from your users. And the faster you get feedback from your users, the faster you create a product that your users want, love, and need. So to put it in even simpler terms, in caveman terms, me ship fast product equals me get great product faster. So, all jokes aside, right? This is something at Vercel that we take really seriously. And when you think about Vercel, we mainly have two products. The first is our front-end cloud. And with our front-end cloud, there is two major portions of our front-end cloud. The first is our developer experience platform. And what that is a suite of tools that make it really easy for you to collaborate with different team members to ship products as fast as possible, as well as a deployment platform that makes it really easy to create new preview environments and to ship changes as you code them. In addition, the second part of our platform is our managed infrastructure platform. And so this is a really world-class infrastructure platform that hosts your front-end application. And rather than spending a lot of time sort of managing the back-end portion of your front-end tech stack, Vercel automatically does this for you, and it comes with a world-class CDN. It comes with automatic scaling and provisioning. So Vercel's managed infrastructure is incredibly performant, scalable, and secure by default. And so that is Vercel's front-end cloud and the first portion of Vercel's products. Of course, the second product is what you're probably here for, and that's V0. And V0 is a web development agent created by Vercel, and it's incredibly powerful. It's trained on the modern tech stack, so it has the most up-to-date information about modern web development, whether it be Next.js, ShadCN, or Tailwind. It's incredibly powerful. And rather than having developers spend days or weeks creating a website, V0 can simply do it in minutes. And to that extent, V0 can generate UI. It's really great at generating UI. As you can see in this video here, this is a home screen that V0 has generated. And also, one thing to note is that as I was pulling up the slide deck, you saw another thing that V0 generated. These slides. They're not actually Google Slides, although it may have looked like it. V0 has actually cloned Google Slides. And as you can see, this is actually what the V0 chat looks like. If you go into the code, this is all code that V0 has written. So that's something that's really, really cool and really powerful about V0. V0 is really good at generating out UIs. So let's go back to the slide deck right here, and we'll go back and share my screen. So in addition, right, V0 not only generates UI, it can actually create full stack applications. It can connect to your backend APIs. And for today, we're going to be creating a chatbot. So, okay, hang on. Wait, why is Clippy here? Okay, Clippy, I'm kind of in the middle of doing something. I'm kind of running a V0 workshop. Okay. So you're actually kind of jealous of ChatGPT and you want me to make you into a modern chatbot. I think we can do that, right? Like that was where we plan on doing anyways. So let's go ahead and take a look at what a modern version of Clippy actually looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and change my screen share really quickly. I'm going to change it to Figma. So let me know if everybody can see my Figma slides. All right. Can everybody see what we have here? All right, great. This is our chatbot we're going to be creating today. It's pretty simple, but I think it's also pretty standard for what chatbots go for today. And so now that we see what we're going to be creating today, let's go ahead and dive straight into V0. So as you can see, right now I have v0.dev. This is the home screen. Hopefully, everyone has already created a V0 account, so you would log in here. And what you want to do is you want to go ahead and create a new project. So I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to call it Hi, just for simplicity's sake. I'm going to go ahead and create the project here. You should see a new project be created. We go here and search for the project and say, Hi, everyone. And as you can see, this new project now shows up. And what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and go into my project settings, and I want to add my environment variable. So as I mentioned earlier at the very start of this call, if you have an OpenAI API key, I would go ahead and add that here. Now, for security purposes, I love you all, but I don't want to give out my API key to everyone. So I've gone ahead and actually created an existing project with an OpenAI API key right here. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here. I'm going to pull up a quick poll question asking what everybody wants to create using V0. But while we're waiting for the poll to pull up, you can also go ahead and take that time to create a Vercel account, or maybe also to set up your OpenAI API key. All right, we'll probably give it or a minute too. So 12:13, I think we'll go ahead and sort of dive into the actual creation of the chatbot. Meanwhile, let me go ahead and take a look at some of the questions, see if there's anything I can answer right off the bat. Let's see. Will you be able to get the recording? Yes, you will be able to get the recording. And one more thing for housekeeping, if you could if you could ask your questions in the Q&A panel at the bottom of the screen, that'd be really helpful. That way, our Vercel cracked engineers, Andre, Sean, Jared, Christian, they can answer the questions on the Q&A panel and sort of clean up the chat for anything that's important. Um, how did you get the Figma design there? I actually, it's not magic. I actually spent some time right before this application to prepare the Figma chat. So I got that ready. And then that's what we've been using for the Vercel demonstration later today. So um, why do we need the OpenAI API key? I'll answer this question really quickly, and then I think we'll move on to the actual demo. The OpenAI API key is important because in order to connect to the actual LLM, which is hosted on OpenAI servers, you need a password. And so this password essentially gives V0 a password to connect to, so it can connect to the OpenAI server. Really simple. And we'll talk a little bit more about sort of how that works after we create the original demo. All right. Hopefully everybody has gone the OpenAI API key set up. They've created their project. Let's go ahead and show you what the actual workflow looks like. So right now there's a couple of chats that are already in here, but you would see sort of an empty chat input text box, text box. And I'm going to go ahead and input a new question right here and have V0 generate the initial chat interface. So I can see V0 first thinks about how it might do it, just like any other software developer might. And then it starts writing out code. And it writes code out in Next.js, which, of course, we're going to talk a little bit more later on about what that is and how it plays into V0. But as you can see, it's creating a really basic chat app and generally takes about, I think 10 to 30 seconds to create the initial response. So it's generating it live. And while we do so, I'm just going to take a quick drink of water. All right, as you can see, it's creating out stuff in, really it's creating a CSS file. It's using Tailwind, right? And this is what we talked about with V0 creating a modern tech stack. In addition, it's using shadcn, which is also a really important component library that's often used in modern web development. And here we can see that in about the span of 30 seconds, V0 has created a basic chat app. So let's go ahead and test it out really quickly. So I'm going to say hi. And as you can see, wow, like this AI chatbot works, right? We went from prompt to a real working chatbot in about a minute, right? Just to show you that this is not like hard coded. Let's try like a random question. In this case, like what is the largest state in the U.S.? So as you can see, it answers the question, right? Just like a normal chatbot, it's Alaska, right? And so congrats, like we've created a brand new chatbot. But as you notice, this doesn't quite look like what Clippy wants, right? Clippy wants a home, not a generic chatbot. So let's go ahead and bring our Figma application or your Figma frame into here. So I understand that for some of y'all, you may not have access to the V0's Figma Premium account, which is a premium feature of V0. So instead, Andre will go ahead and upload screenshots for you to have V0 try to replicate. It might not look exactly like what you see here, simply because it's a non-deterministic AI and it's also using a screenshot of a Figma frame, but hopefully it gets close enough. So I'm first going to copy the Clippy chat. In general, I think it's better to get the functionality of your app, what the backend, the full stack portion looks like first, and then to make the UI match what you're looking for. And so this is what we're doing here. And go ahead and insert the Figma URL here. As you can see, it pulls up the Figma frame, as well as the different design tokens, the colors that I'm trying to use with V0. I hit confirm, and then I'm going to enter this other prompt. It just says, great work. You always got to be nice to AIs, right? And then afterwards, just saying, hey, can you match what I've created and uploaded in Figma right here? So I'm going to hit enter right now. As you can see, V0 sort of gets to work and is in the process of making this a home for Clippy. As you can see, it's now modifying the Tailwind file to use the design tokens that we had in mind earlier, which is great. And it should be able to edit the existing code to make it look like what you want it to look like. As you can see, Tailwind code right here, shadcn sort of at the top as well. Okay, so it generated the overall layout. It seems to have missed the yellow theme that we're sort of looking for. That's totally fine. Let me go ahead and prompt V0 to sort of include the yellow theme that we're looking for earlier. So, of course, AI is non-deterministic, so sometimes it might make errors. The nice thing about V0 is that if you simply say like what you're looking for, it does a good job of actually correcting. So this was actually, the yellow theme was actually unplanned, but now we're telling V0 to try again, and hopefully this time, knock on wood, fingers crossed, it actually creates the yellow theme that matches the Figma screenshots that we were looking at earlier. Okay, great. So now it has gone ahead and created a yellow theme. It looks much more like a home for Clippy. And as you can see, the functionality of the chat remains the same. So if I say first US president, right, it should pull up George Washington. Right, there we go. So it still looks functional. Okay, so as you can see, there are a couple of things that are missing. For example, on the Figma frame, there are some nice images of Clippy, our star today, as well as pictures of a really cute dog, my dog, by the way. And so let's go ahead and bring those images into V0 as well. I think, Andre, I have a couple of images that we're going to upload, and then you can simply download them and then bring them back up into V0. So let me go ahead and upload these images from my computer. In this case, I have these two. We're going to go ahead and then use this prompt. All right, so now these images are automatically uploaded to V0, or sorry, to Vercel's infrastructure. It's uploaded on Vercel blob, which you can almost think of as equivalent to a CDN layer in Vercel's managed infrastructure. Of course, more on that later. But as you can see, it's been uploaded, and now it's bringing those images into the application. Okay, so as you can see, it's got the clippies right here. It's got a dark background. It's got a little circle right here for the dog, which is really, really cute as well. Now, I want to show off another really cool feature of V0 that makes it unique amongst like other sort of like other sort of tools that are available. If you go back to the Figma file, you can see that, with this submit button, I'm being nitpicky here, right? But V0 can surely handle the nitpick. It's actually a circle, what V0 generated, and this is really a rounded rectangle. So let's go ahead and have V0 correct for that. I'm going to go ahead and use V0 select tool, which here on the top right, you can see there's a little like arrow with a little star or sparkles around it. I'm going to click that select tool, and then we're going to go ahead and highlight the particular element we want V0 to make a quick change. So this basically tells V0 what exact component or element on the page you want changed, and it does it automatically. So I'm going to say, can you make this more of a rounded rectangle instead of a full circle? And because you're specifying what typically element it does, V0 generally makes edits with the select tool much faster. Um, and so hopefully it goes ahead and makes it into the round rectangle that more closely matches the Figma design. All right, great. I guess it kind of did it not in a square. I'm sure I could go back and make the select tool, then use square. But for the sake of time, like let's go ahead and sort of move on onto the next frame. So the other frame that we sort of saw was the welcome screen, right? And we're going to go ahead and have V0 try to replicate that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the link to this Figma frame. I'm going to bring it into Vercel. Once again, if you don't have access to the V0 premium plan, you might have to rely on a screenshot, which I think Andre will go ahead and set up right now. I'm going to go ahead and upload this. Same thing. And then I'm going to insert this prompt. Um, I also say it's also like oftentimes it's like pretty cool to see how V0 is making the change to look at how it's thinking about different things. I think like V0 is really powerful and sort of getting a peek of under its hood is just I don't know. I think it's absolutely cool. And just sort of like see how the cutting edge tech really works. So as you can see, it went ahead and created this. It's sort of messed up here, but as you like, what you could do is you could spend a couple minutes to sort of refine and iterate it to greatness, right? We all care about the iteration velocity to show off like really what the power of what V0 can do later on. I've included a link Here, I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like if you spend a little bit more time with V0, and you can sort of create something like this. And so as you can see, if you take maybe like 30 minutes to sort of refine your prompt and refine your V0 generation, you can create stuff where there's like nice little subtle animations whenever you hover over stuff. Or it can format stuff in Markdown, right? So it gives out the bold stuff as the information is created, which is pretty cool. And that's because V0 has access to a number of different libraries, JavaScript libraries, to make your application as great as possible. So Andre, I think if you want to take a look, we can drop that link in the chat. But let's just say for a moment that we've refined this and we're sort of ready to deploy it. I understand that right now it doesn't really look like it, but let's go ahead and deploy what we have so far. And with V0, it's incredibly easy to deploy on Vercel. All you have to do is just hit this button and it automatically starts. Now, while we're waiting for this application to deploy, let's actually sort of dive under the hood and sort of take a look at what V0 is really doing, like in terms of code. So if we go here, you can see that there are really two major open source projects that V0 is using. The first is the AI SDK, and the AI SDK is essentially a library that makes it really, really easy to create AI-powered chatbots on the web. It's really powerful. It's used by companies like Perplexity, Supabase, Chick-fil-A, so on and so forth. And it really is one of the most popular ways to build out a AI chatbot using JavaScript after the OpenAI SDK. So it's a really, really powerful tool. It's created and maintained by us, Vercel, but it's open source and anybody can use it. And it's not tied to any particular framework. Now, this brings me to the next technology that V0 is using, and that is Next.js. Next.js is another open source project that we create, and it's a React framework. It's one of the most popular ways to create a React application on the web today. And the reason why it's so popular is because it's incredibly powerful and it's incredibly easy to use. So developers love us, and there are companies like, once again, like Chick-fil-A, but also Stripe and Sonos and OpenAI, who all use Next.js to build out their websites. And so that's something that is really, really cool. And to sort of show you the power of Next.js, as you can see right here, it is written out a code. It is written out Next.js code, right? And Next.js code allows you to define out API routes. So under here, it has an API folder, and under this chat endpoint, right, it turns into a API endpoint that your Next.js application can call or other applications can call. And so this is a feature of Next.js. It's not tied to V0. It's just the power of the open source framework and part of the reason of why so many developers choose to build out their websites with Next.js. Now, with that being said, of course, you have you have this API endpoint. Now, typically, if you were to then define out what this API endpoint looks like, you have a function, right, that runs whenever the API endpoint is called. You would then need to take that API endpoint that you created, the function that's been created, and you have to put it on your cloud provider and make sure that there is compute that will actually run this function on the backend. But at Vercel, and this is really the power of, I think, what makes V0 and Vercel work together so well. Hang on, let me refresh this quickly. The power of Vercel and V0 together is the fact that, okay, hang on. We'll go here. The power of what makes V0 and Vercel work together so well is that V0 writes the medium in Next.js code, right? And it also, Vercel will automatically take the code that V0 has written and deploy the proper infrastructure primitives. So earlier, I mentioned how V0 just wrote out the API endpoints, and typically you would then have to go ahead and set up the backend infrastructure yourself. Now, with Vercel, earlier we talked about the managed infrastructure piece. And the thing that's really powerful about Vercel's managed infrastructure is what we spent a lot of money, time, and talent to create over years, right? Is this really, really powerful managed infrastructure platform that automatically reads your Next.js code and deploys the proper primitives. So it's really powerful that way. You don't really have to worry or think about your backend infrastructure at all. All you have to do is hit the deploy button or simply push your code to GitHub, and Vercel handles the rest of the infrastructure. And so that's something that is really, really powerful and a great time saver for developers or anybody who wants to create any project. So that is sort of how V0 and managed infrastructure piece sort of work together. There is the other part, which is the front of the Vercel's front end cloud, which is the developer experience platform. And I'm going to show you a quick little preview of what that might look like. So obviously, in the time in which we've sort of talked about Vercel and the managed infrastructure platform, our application has been deployed, and it's available all over the world. It's globally distributed. It's highly scalable, right? And it's incredibly performant. And this application not only comes with a serverless function endpoint, the API endpoint automatically deployed, but it also comes when you deploy on Vercel, it comes with the web application firewall for security. It also comes with the CDN layer for performance. And so this is really the power of Vercel's managed infrastructure platform, right? It's so easy that even an AI can use it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take this link and give it out to sort of show you that, we have people all over the world, and people all over the world can access this version of the V0 generation. So I'm going to go ahead and submit it and put it out to everyone. Okay. Yeah. And so, while we're sort of waiting for everybody's pages to load up this new chat, as you can see, we have like over 1,000 attendees, and everybody is going to be hitting this link, right? And this page should load for all of you. So I'm curious, like, for everyone who is on this chat, how long does it take for you guys to deploy this application? How long did it take for you to set up the infrastructure to make it so that people from all over the world can access this particular URL and, like, that's available all over the world? Sorry. And we have this poll question that's pulled up right now. Okay. Yeah. So, I'm seeing, like, I'm looking at the results, and it seems like, about half and half take about like a few hours, a couple of days, and other people say it takes 1 to 4 weeks. With what you saw with Vercel, it took me a minute while I was talking, right, about how great Vercel is, and I just proved it to you, right? And so that really is the power of Vercel. Let me refresh this page really quickly. Um, and okay, so now we've gone ahead and created this application. And you might notice that it looks pretty much exactly the same to what you see on V0. With exception, on my screen, you might see there's a tiny little circle on the bottom left side of the screen. And so this circle is only available for people who are deployed, or people who are in the Vercel team in which this application is deployed. So because I was the one who instructed V0 to deploy the application, this shows up for me. This probably won't show up for you, or it shouldn't show up for you. And then this Vercel toolbar talks to our developer experience platform and makes it really easy for you to collaborate with other team members. So let's go ahead and open up this Vercel toolbar. As you can see, there's a bunch of different things that are available. One thing that I want to highlight is accessibility audits, right? I think it's important to create websites that are accessible for everyone, not just for the people who are fully abled. And the Vercel toolbar will automatically check for any accessibility violations, so your website is available for everyone. In addition to that, you can also test for performance. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. You can also test for performance. So you can test for layout shifts, which I would have to refresh the page for. But as you can see, there were no layout shifts detected. So it's great. Visa actually wrote great code, right? In addition to that, I think one of the standout features of Vercel's toolbar is the commenting feature. So let me go ahead and click this. And a lot of times, as you can see, V0 didn't create something that's perfect, right? And you might actually want your engineer, like a real software engineer, to go ahead and make some additional changes that V0 might not be able to make. And so the commenting tool is a great way to do so. So I'm gonna go ahead and click this. As you can see, the Figma screen had it in the middle. And I'm going to ask Christian, who is a kick-ass software engineer in addition to be a sales engineer, who is also on this call. I'm going to ask him something that I'm sure every single software developer has heard or gotten feedback on, and it's simply just please fix. Right. So if I was to hit this send email button, right, or if I was to hit the send button, there would be an email that would populate in Christian's inbox. Of course, I don't want to spam, Christian's already super full inbox. But if you also connected this to a GitHub sort of repository, whenever somebody writes a comment, it will also show up on GitHub pull request. And so it'll block any merges from happening unless the comments on Vercel are resolved. And so with Vercel, you get like unique preview environments along with that. This is a separate session. I think we're going to have a workshop on just Vercel, and we're going to sort of dive into all the great features of Vercel's developer experience platform. But we really want Vercel to sort of be the hub where everybody sort of collaborates with, where everybody works together to create and iterate a product and bring it to greatness. So going back to the slides for a moment, we really think that, at the end of the day, V0 and Vercel, like they're your favorite wine and cheese. I love wine and I love cheese, but of course they always go better together. And I think Vercel really is like a great platform with so many different features. You don't have to think about your backend infrastructure. It's a really great way to collaborate with other people. And companies like Okta, Meta, eBay, Netflix, they all use Vercel to sort of handle their front-end deployments. That really is the power of Vercel. And of course, it's not just me yapping, like the proof is in the pudding. If you look at the numbers, you can see that Vercel actually helps their customers save developer time and help them iterate faster. And so if I'm going to go back to the original slide, this is sort of the last slide of this workshop. I talked about how iteration velocity is a solution to online software problems. Hopefully, through today's exploration and workshop, you got a little bit of taste of how powerful V0 and Vercel are and how it really empowers developers to iterate as fast as possible. So as I said earlier with the caveman speak, ooga booga, we create with Vercel faster tools and thereby better products that make our users happy. So thank you. That concludes the end of our workshop. We're now going to go ahead and do a quick Q&A session.
Okay, does V0 handle just front end? No. V0 can also do a great job creating backend API routes, as long as those backend API routes are Next.js or are in a Next.js project. Derek, welcome back. You are muted.
Okay, so sorry about that. I think the thing about demos is that there's always going to be something that goes wrong from a technical perspective, except this time it wasn't Vercel or V0, it's my internet provider. So note to self, get a better internet provider.
Yeah, we do what we can, but we are limited by the internet we are provided. I don't think you missed a ton of questions. I just saw a question in the chat. Can V0 support React Native? I actually just ran into this the other day. V0 can write React Native code, but the preview environment can't render those React Native components. So if you are building a React Native project, let's say you're working in something like Expo, and you want help in how you're going to build some of your components or manage some complex state, that's something V0 can definitely help you with, but you won't be able to render the results of those in the V0 preview pane. You can copy and paste them into your offline project. The questions are moving super fast. Derek, if you see any and you just want to jump at them, feel free. I'll try to cherry pick some good ones to lob to you while
Yes,
you're answering one.
of course. Sorry, I'm still getting set up for my internet disaster. So
All good, all good.
let me pull it up really quickly.
Is V0 mostly for brand new projects, or does it integrate with current code bases?
That's actually a great question. So V0 can work with existing projects. I will say that it's probably not V0's strong suit. It's better if you sort of use it sort of at the beginning stage when you're initially starting out a project. I think the most popular use case for V0 that we see with a lot of customers, and I talk to like customers all day about V0, right? And it's with creating like prototypes. So we want to give designers the ability to create these like bar-raising user experiences. And so with V0, they can sort of test out what they might look like. In addition, we also see like product managers use V0 to prototype to sort of validate a particular user flow. These are all common use cases that we see with V0 today. If everybody's interested, we have a couple of spare moments and I can go ahead and show like a common prototyping flow that we see with some designers and product managers
Yeah,
as well.
I think it'd be super helpful to see that type of flow. While you're doing so, a quick question that I saw commonly in the Q&A section, and I'm also seeing a couple times here in chat, is why do we need the open AI key? Isn't V0 and LLM?
Yeah. So like V0 is a LLM, and a lot of the learnings we've taken to sort of build out a LLM at scale are actually in the Vercel AI SDK, which is you can sort of see right here. Right. And the thing of is like the AI SDK, it actually makes calls to the OpenAI API endpoint. So the LLM model is actually being run in OpenAI servers. And what's happening here with what you saw earlier right here, with the code, is that there is essentially middleware that sort of basically manages the request to OpenAI servers and passes it on to OpenAI servers. And then OpenAI servers return the response from the LLM and give it back to V0.
Yeah, great answer. I also think that different LLMs are good at different things, and V0 is specifically trained to write Next.js. That's as the creators and maintainers of Next.js at Vercel, like that's what we know best. So that's what V0 is best suited for. And you might want to connect to a different LLM, let's say ChatGPT, if you're trying to build a general purpose chat application to answer questions about the weather or stocks or something like that. I saw another question based off of what you were just saying about the AI SDK. Can you talk a little bit why someone would want to use the AI SDK versus just using LangChain or something directly, or like an OpenAI SDK directly?
Yeah, well, for one, here is a whole list of people telling you why you should use the OpenAI SDK. Perhaps I predicted your question. But I think the other thing of why I think Vercel's AI SDK is so great is that one, it provides like these really nice abstractions on top of building out a like AI application, right? So here at Vercel, we built out V0, right? And there are a lot of best practices in terms of like creating a really functional chatbot at scale. And we provided a lot of these tools that we use to build V0 into the AI SDK. So our learnings about creating V0 go into the AI SDK, and the latest breakthroughs of the AI SDK team goes into V0 as well. So you're really getting like essentially the most cutting edge way and the most like, performant and like best practices to build out an AI application at scale. So that's the first reason, right? It makes it really easy to build out AI applications. The second reason is that the ASDK is because of the abstraction layer, it allows you to connect to multiple different AI providers. So ChatGPT is no longer the only model in town. I'm sure you've heard of like DeepSeek, which is the Chinese like version, right? Like a Chinese um, version of like ChatGPT, and that's also really powerful. And the tool call is actually cheaper. And here at Vercel, like we're pretty agnostic. Like we don't really we don't want to be tied down to a particular model. Different models, as Christian mentioned, are better at different things. And so with the ASDK, it's really simple. All you have to do is you have to go here, and instead you just have to change this text to something like DeepSeek or maybe like Perplexity, right? Instead, get access to those models. It's really, really simple.
Yeah, great answer. Um, I'm seeing a lot of questions about design systems that you want to answer about how we can set up a Figma integration, or was there something you wanted to address more about the AI SDK first?
Um, I think we've covered the ASDK. I can definitely tackle the design system question. That's a question we get here a lot at V0. And basically today, with V0, there's sort of three main ways in which we support design systems. The first is you can use a repo mix. You can sort of bring in your source code. You can add them to a project source file on V0. If you're interested, definitely reach out to our product experts after this call and we can tell you a little bit more. This The second is for local context. So the V0 team is trying to actively work and support like existing third-party design systems. But the way in which we sort of want to support design systems today is for teams to create their own AI native design system. So a lot of times when we see people with different Figma prototypes, we see that people have a version of the design system on Figma. They have a version of the design system in code for React, right? But a lot of teams are using V0 for prototyping and brainstorming. So what does that look like, right? And the current alternative today is you see something like this, where you have a giant Figma file and like, it's the designer equivalent of spaghetti code, right? And so when you create a version of a design system using V0, you can essentially sort of like get the best of both worlds, right? And you can actually do this incrementally, right? So in this case, like I've created a application based off of on V0, and you can have V0 extract out the components, so right here, and then you can put them into a new application going forward in the future. And so that's sort of how you can create the AI data system incrementally as you create and use V0 in your day-to-day.
Great response. When you said it's the equivalent of spaghetti code, my brain started thinking about like how, like what the comparable analogy is for Figma, and it's really like a cafeteria, right? When you're connecting to a messy Figma board, it's like this cafeteria of food, and you don't know what to eat. And sometimes when you're connecting to a V0 project, um, it's overwhelming for V0 to have all of these references in Figma. When you do connect to a Figma project, it will ask you for specific screens. There's a lot of questions in the chat generally about how to add information working with projects. So I thought it would be helpful if you don't mind just popping into a project and showing where
Mhm,
that settings gear is, where people can add additional sources for a project, um,
mhm.
if you don't
Yeah, of
mind.
course. Yeah. The great thing about having slide decks in V0 is you can simply click on the slide and it brings you to the relevant V0 link.
All right.
I do need to switch context though and switch teams really quickly. But hopefully it reloads. Okay, so right now, this is also sort of a showcase of like sort of how great V0 is at creating UIs. This is what you saw earlier on the slides, right? And this is based off of an existing screenshot. It could be a Figma file as well, but this is what V0 has created. This took me about maybe 30 minutes to an hour of prompting, and it got me to this sort of point. And so it's power of sort of V0 to get somewhere like 80 to 90% of what your Figma screen looks like in 30 minutes. That's crazy, right? But I had this application and I'm really happy with what it looks like. And if you go scroll down to the very end, um, you can see that I had to extract out different components, right? Um, and so I've had it extract out the header and the sidebar. And then what I can do is I can go into the project here and, oh, wait, hang on. Actually, there was something. I've extracted out and I've downloaded those components and then uploaded them here to sidebar and header, right? Um, and so now when I create a new generation, it will use those components, right? The head bar, the header and the sidebar in its future generation. So this is another screenshot that I've created, and this is what V0 has generated. So it's using the existing sort of AI native components and bringing them into a new prototyping context.
Thank you so much for all the information here, Derek. This has been super helpful, I'm sure, for everyone in chat. Um, Last question, just because I've seen it a million times in chat, recording. How can people see the recording?
Yes, there should be email that comes out afterwards with the recording. If you don't get it, please bug one of the people on this call, and we'll definitely try to get the recording to you. But
Yeah,
yes, oh,
sorry, I
sorry,
was
go
gonna say
ahead.
we'll make sure it gets sent out.
Yeah, yeah. But anyways, thank you so much for listening to me to yap like for 45 minutes. Like that's crazy. Nobody ever listens to me yap for 45 minutes. And thanks for being a part of this. Yeah, thank you.